Okay. Welcome to the IDW CleanRoom, a controlled. Why do I always forget it? A controlled environment for uncontrolled conversation. Today we're gonna talk part 2 about the post-election. I guess we can probably agree that we are in a post-election state right now. But I think we have to be open to the idea that some people don't feel that way. And we were just talking pre-stream about civic duty, and it started with this idea that it would be a really good idea for the Biden administration and the media and the Democrats to say, since it doesn't look like it's going to be a disputed election, it would be a good idea for them to say, well, we're going to do a recount anyway. We're going to pay for it. I think it's for the country. That's what we're going to do. I think that's a good idea. And then I got to talking about Peterson's ideas about Kavanaugh. And so Peterson had said, and he kind of reneged on this, but I still think it was a good idea, that it would have been great if Kavanaugh had been given the nomination and then stepped down for the good of the country, because there was this massive distrust. And Arco's with me, Zach is not. So I'm going to recap a little bit. Well, I think I've argued my side pretty well, and I think it'd be better if Zach said what he wanted to say, because I'm afraid of misstating it.
All right, so it wouldn't be a good civic duty for him to have stepped down. Why? Like, they brought up bunk charges that they couldn't even be corroborated even before and during the hearings. And then where he's supposed to step down because they borked him on things that couldn't even be corroborated. How is that good civic duty?
Well, the idea
it's pure partisan hackery.
He wouldn't be stepping down because he's trying to say that there's something about the allegations that's true. The point of stepping down, like Jimmy said, was there's a distrust in this country over him being a nominee. That distrust alone, regardless of if it's right or wrong, that distrust alone by the broad public would be a reason for someone to say, okay, because they don't trust me, this is now going to mean people won't trust the institution. So for the sake of the institution, I'm going to step down so that someone they can trust will be put in place. And that way the institution is saved. It's not about me, it's about the country. That'd be the motivation.
This just means even if person who is accused similarly will have to step down, because
right. This sounds like
it's not a have to. It's not a have to. It's not a have to. It's not a have to.
We allow.
It's a matter of virtue here. It's a matter of virtue here.
I think
the accusation.
Well, the different. So here's how I think.
No, I don't think it's a matter of virtue, because you could say, well, it's virtuous to just continue to accept the position that I think I won legitimately this time, because if I don't accept it because someone else is illegitimately accusing me of cheating, then that opens up the accusation of cheating as
a valid
for the future forever. Yeah,
but we're not talking about an election. Hold on, we're talking about Kavanaugh specifically. Let me finish.
Listen,
wait. Let me say something. Hey, hold on. Let me say something. We're saying that the process itself should have gotten him the nomination legally, and he as a person, it would have been I think my personal opinion, if he chose as a person to say, you know what, I don't think that people are going to trust in me for the good of the country, I'm going to step down. I don't think it would be. I understand, but the difference is that wouldn't legitimize the idea that the process should ever choose someone based on accusations. But it would say, like, I think with time, it would have done a lot more against that sort of behavior, because as time went on, it became clearer and clearer that Kavanaugh is a reasonable dude. He none of his decisions have been really very controversial. If anything, he's decided against his own personal feelings a couple times. So I get why we should never obligate him to do it. It should never be obligatory. It's more that
Exactly.
it's not that anyone's saying
That's
that he has to do that. It's just I think that if he did choose to do that, it could have been a good thing for the country. In the same way that I think if Biden pays for like this was Arco's idea, if Biden pays for a recount, he doesn't have to. Almost definitely he's not going to have to. But it would be really good for the country if he did, I think.
right, and that's what I mean by a matter of virtue. It's not an obligation. It has nothing to do with fulfilling something that the institution requires or the election or anything like that. It's a matter of a person taking on the civic duty and commitment for the sake of something else. And I think that would be a good thing for our society.
So somebody in the comments says they will then accuse their next and I agree they would probably do that. But if they did it again, it would really leave a bad taste in the mouth of the whole country. They like if they continued to do it, doing it again like years later is not going to be as damning as if like you bring out forth one person and they do it, and then you bring forth another person and they do it again. Then it's like, you know what? I'm done with you. You're just lying. You're just going to find a problem with everybody. I don't mean, I could be wrong. I could definitely be wrong. I just don't think the Democrats would be ballsy enough to do it twice in a row.
I think you will be wrong due to the sheer fact that when Kavanaugh was nominated, that the Democrats suffered heavily in the polls and in their projections for the 2018 midterms. And then what happened with the midterms? They still had their blue wave because the voters had already moved on.
Hold on, I think I misunderstand, because I thought Jimmy was saying if we did something virtuous like this, we would see benefit. But then Zach said you're wrong because we see Democrats lost, but the Democrats didn't do what Jimmy was describing would be good for the country.
I said the Democrats won. They did. They blew out the 2018 midterms.
But did they win because they accused Kavanaugh? Are you saying that the reason they won the elections?
Saying the voters didn't care. By the time the elections came around for 2018, all of their electoral losses had been recouped and then gained over.
So I don't think that they didn't care. I don't think we can draw that conclusion by the fact that they won. I think all that demonstrates is that there was a reason why the Democrats won. They could have won because they didn't like other policies and it had nothing to do with the Kavanaugh
was the last thing that happened before the 2018 election.
That just because it's the last thing doesn't mean that's the motivating reason behind the vote.
Okay, you can make that claim.
No, I'm saying you need more evidence there, or more demonstrations in order to prove yours that that's the reason. I don't see the chain of causation there.
I mean, polling data was pretty clear.
It's just correlation that it happened right before and Democrats won. Polling data is just evidence of how people voted, not why
he
they
was
voted.
saying that the Democrats took a hit in the polls when Kavanaugh was nominated, but then won anyways. That's what he's saying.
Won the midterm elections, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that if
that is some evidence.
Yeah, I guess I have no way to say that this is true. My gut tells me that if they had done it twice in a row, I don't think they would have recovered so well.
I mean, they've done it like 3 times so far. Like they did it to Bork, they did it to Justice what's his name? Clarence Thomas.
Oh, Clarence Thomas. Yep.
Yeah. Like Clarence Thomas is actually fairly egregious, and it also got brought up in the Democrat primaries against Biden.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess maybe I'm not familiar enough. If it's happening repeatedly, then I guess at some point you do have to just say, no, screw you. But
both parties are doing it. Both parties are trying to obfuscate, trying to make it so that the opposite party doesn't get a Supreme Court nominee through.
I mean,
and it's just getting worse and worse. It's getting worse and worse over time.
Nominations and votes, there are a lot of judges on both sides that were confirmed with 95 to 100 votes.
Not recent.
That's changed. That's changed recently. That's
not true in the last decade.
No, not in the last decade. No,
yeah,
but
that's what I'm saying. It's changed.
That's the point. The point is it's changed how it worked. Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
To be more on
the
one
last
side than
Supreme
the
Court
other
justice
from
that
what I've
Republicans
looked at.
blocked, all
I
they
might
did was
be
they just
wrong.
didn't vote on it. They
Yeah,
didn't,
no, the
like,
Republicans
back
started
back.
the trend. That's, I think, the important takeaway. If you're gonna blame someone for the change, the Republicans are the ones that changed it,
Well,
and the Democrats
no,
decided
Okay, but
people
if they
do.
do it
Democrats
once
are the
and
ones
then
who
the
invented
Democrats do it
abortion.
4 times in a row, then come on, bro, that's really disingenuous, man. It doesn't matter who started it. It depends.
No, it
who's using
absolutely
repeatedly.
matters who
I
started
think it does
It's
matter
it
who
was
started it
unprecedented.
because
I mean,
because
It
when
does
you
matter who started it, but
Abortions
they're
didn't
they're not
start it.
stopping it, are they?
Forking's been
Are
around
they
for
No, I'm
stopping
not
it?
saying that what they're doing is okay, but I'm saying there is more blame on the ones that started it because that set the precedent
Which would
that
be
this
the
is okay to do in politics now.
So who's the first to do it? What was the first?
The Republicans were the first to not nominate a Democratic nominee because they were a Democratic nominee. This happened at the end of Obama's term.
No. That's not
Democrats
the
did
case.
this.
That's not the
No,
question. The
what?
question. Whoa, whoa,
Let's
whoa,
go
whoa, whoa,
back
whoa. There's too
further,
many people
man.
talking. There's too many people talking. The question is, when did people start using accusations against somebody, their personal life, to derail a nomination? That to me is
Oh,
the
that-
issue.
Yeah, that
American,
seems
that's
to
been
be-
happening.
Yes.
Hold on, that's been happening in American politics for a long time. People tried to do that with presidents really a long time ago, like John Quincy Adams.
Yeah, I don't think
was
that's new.
accused of being what was accused of like streaking and stuff like that to try and discredit him so people wouldn't vote for him. It's a common tactic. It just got applied to Supreme Court justices in the modern era because Supreme Court justices became political. That's a difference there. But trying to ruin people's reputation is a really, really old political strategy.
That's
I also think in the Kavanaugh case, it was a legitimate accusation, in my opinion. So most likely, I don't know 100%, but I think most likely
people
the
seem.
accusations
Everybody
on him were
seems to
true.
be sure. Everybody seems to be sure about that. I don't feel
I'm not
that.
100% sure, but I lean towards the chances that the accusation was legitimate.
I lean towards
No
she
one
seems like a liar to
corroborated.
me, but I would never like. I'm not gonna hold that up in court. But here the difference being destroying someone's destroying someone's reputation is one thing. Accusing someone of a crime is another thing. Accusing someone of a crime that is well past the what's the term I'm looking for? When you can prosecute for
Statute
it.
of limitations.
The statute of,
or-
yeah, sure. That's a whole nother thing. So like these are I mean, we can see the pattern, but I guess accusing someone of rape, which is like not like other crimes. I really think that most people consider rape.
I don't think
on,
that particular accusation wasn't rape.
well, that was how
It
it was
became-
framed.
Her original accusations were like it was like sexual misconduct, sexual harassment, and then over the course of the hearings, it turned into gang rape.
I don't remember it ever turning into that in the hearing.
I remember Kamala Harris specifically asking about him being a gang rapist.
Is there a video of that?
Yes.
Man, hold on.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't. What the hell's going on with my? I don't know. The point, I think. Wow, this sounds funny to me. I don't know what's going on with my microphone. Fuck. Is that better? There we go. I don't know how we got to this. I guess all of this is
civic duty.
all of this is just more evidence that more legitimacy to distrusting political process. Right? I mean, I think we can agree there's massive distrust in the political process. There's massive distrust in the media's ability to inform the public about what is happening in the political process. So the point being, not that that doesn't prove that the election is anything less than perfectly legitimate. In fact, I think my personal feeling here is the closer you look at it, the more you're going to find out that this election is, I think it's going to be more trustworthy than like recent history. It just seems to me that people are being ultra careful because they know of all the problems. But I think building trust is just a really smart idea right now, because I don't. If I'm gonna lean anywhere, it's gonna be distrust. And
I think that should be the first priority of the Biden presidency, which is rebuilding trust in the American system, the American government, the presidency.
Totally agree. Not just the office of the president either. Like, they're on the one hand rebuilding a lot of people legitimately want to rebuild the image of our country and our leader. And I get that. I understand that. It doesn't matter. I understand why it matters a lot to a lot of people. But on the other hand, we really want to establish trust in the legitimacy of our democracy, of how it works. And I'm worried because I feel like this could be a great opportunity to do that. And I'm worried that it's not going to happen. I'm worried that the response is going to be, how could you possibly not understand that you lost? Instead of, I fully understand why you believe that this was rigged against you. I mean, I get it.
Problems is that no one, like, a lot of people are not recognizing it's really bad to have so many organizations working together without even criticizing, like tech media, mainstream media, the universities, like even scientists to a certain point are becoming politicized. Like, can't do this. We got to stop this. We got to have them all criticizing each other at the same time. We can't have them all working together just because they want to get rid of Donald Trump in the office.
Yeah, the mobilization of all the institutions towards a single goal incredibly looks like a conspiracy. I mean, heck, it fits the definition of conspiracy.
The point is that there are reasons behind them being motivated. For example, in World War II, all the Allied powers were directed at getting rid of Hitler. We don't say that's a conspiracy because there are good reasons all the Allies were doing that. What makes it a conspiracy is hidden evidence of foul play or of some kind, and we just have to sort of assume that something's going on and try to work towards it in that sense. So there has to be this other element with Trump and everyone being against Trump, that like there's some kind of conspiratorial aspect, some kind of like nefarious behind the scenes action that we don't know about that would be motivating people to be attacking Trump. I don't see that to be the case. I just think that people find Trump to be really bad for the country for explicit reasons that they will say out loud. Like, they think he's racist. They think what he says encourages racism. You might think they are wrong about that, but that is the reason why they're against Trump.
They said the same things about Mitt Romney, though.
I don't remember it being nearly
Bush,
as much for
Reagan,
McCain or Romney or
Nixon.
Bush. I don't remember it being nearly as much as that. It's been a distinct difference.
I mean, I lived in New Jersey.
I'm old enough to remember.
No, bro. During Bush, man, people.
I'm
old
enough to remember
Bush,
Bill Clinton
like,
running for president.
Devil. I do actually a lot in the coastal areas. This happened a lot. Like, people were literally calling George Bush like a dictator.
That's not racist though. I was talking about calling him a racist.
No, racist. Wait, what? Didn't they call George Bush racist for not helping during FEMA during Hurricane Katrina? Are you serious right now?
Kanye West famously said George Bush doesn't care about black people.
Right. So this is different. This is a conflation of what I mean by calling them racist, right? So saying George Bush doesn't care about black people was an instance where they're saying this is racism. But that's not the same as everyone saying Trump's rhetoric is racist. He is a racist and all of his policies are racist. The degree to which Trump was accused of being a racist and the degree to which people wanted to get rid of Trump because of his racism was way more extreme than when it was under the Bush presidency.
Yeah, so
There
all
were
they did
Democrats defending Bush not being racist. That did not happen under Trump, where Democrats were accusing him of being racist. There's a big difference in how the presidents were approached.
Yeah, so what you're saying is they increased the rhetoric.
No, I'm saying the reasons behind why someone thought a person was racist are different. The context is different. The playing field is different. It's not just an increase. There are more reasons for people to think Trump is racist than there were for people to think Bush was racist.
All right, like what?
Well, for example, there was a study done after the first election where they looked into the Trump effect. And based on counties where Trump won more of the popular vote in that county, hate crimes increased. After he won the election, they went up even more.
I looked into those hate crime statistics, and a lot of those hate crimes were actually just people putting up papers saying it's okay to be white.
Did you look it up on the FBI website?
I looked it up on the ADL website.
Okay, so the FBI is where the hate crime statistics came from. I don't know what the ADL has to do with that.
I mean, they're the ones who keep calling all the hate crimes.
That's not the study that was done. The study was done by people in Montreal. They looked at the election data that comes out after every election. They looked at those statistics and they compared it to the FBI statistics. Had nothing to do with the American Defense League. They went through all of these things. They found these correlations. Then they went through counties and they looked at the differences in the counties between who voted for who. So the American Defense League saying like, oh, hey, Trump is racist has nothing to do with that study.
I missed all that. What study was that I caught at the end?
It's a study that was done by political scientists in Montreal where they looked at hate crime statistics and they found what they called the Trump effect, where hate crimes increased after Trump was elected. The reasons why they think it increased was because of Trump's rhetoric normalizing behavior. And things like that, that's not the only type of study that came out when Trump was elected. There was another study that looked at the reasons why people voted for Trump. And many of those reasons, based on these election surveys that come out after every election, was because of anti-immigrant leanings and because of racial tensions. So that study, in conjunction with this other thing, had people in academic settings saying there was one of the motivating reasons why people voted against Trump was because of something like racism or xenophobia. Democrats can then look at like, hey, there's studies for this, and then they would accuse Trump of being racist. There are more reasons for Trump to be accused of that because there are studies backing it up, rather than just people walking on vague feelings. Under Bush, there weren't studies like that showing that there was some type of Bush effect. The reasons why Democrats were attacking Trump for being racist were more than under Trump. It wasn't just an escalation of rhetoric for political things. It's because people actually believe Trump is racist, not just because they had some political agenda.
All right, so they've been told that Trump is racist. There's been no actual proof of this because for the sheer fact that I'm supposed to believe that a single study says that there was an increase in hate crimes based off of FBI statistics, and hate crimes can literally be posters.
I think there's a temporal problem.
That's not the definition of hate crime by the FBI. They use the FBI statistic.
I think there's a temporal problem here because, to me, the way the word racism is being thrown around today is so different than it was under Bush. So, and the word seems to have many meanings now to different people. So I find it hard to believe that you could make the comparison and actually be comparing the same things.
Well,
Yes.
one of the things they did is they looked at hate crimes
Someone
before,
deems you're
like
not
many
doing
years
enough
before. So they
against
compared it.
racism,
They
they could
Yeah,
compared
but
call
the
hate
it
crimes
that
have been
as well.
All right,
reclassified since then. under
guys, you
Obama.
got to
Hold
let
on,
each other
hold on.
finish. You got to let each
So
finish.
one of the things they looked at the FBI statistics starting under Bill Clinton when they started tracking hate crime statistics, and they looked at peaks of when hate crimes increase. The only other time in history that they found a spike that was as significant as the Trump effect, quote unquote Trump effect, was after 9/11 against people who looked Middle Eastern. That was the only other time in that whole period of tracking. Now, someone said that the way the FBI tracks hate crimes changed over that time period. I'd like to see evidence for that, because when I looked into it, the definition didn't really change. They're using the FBI definition, not some broad definition of hate crime here. They're not using like a social justice warrior definition. They're using law enforcement definition of hate crime.
I mean, yeah. I guess.
Also, I want to mention that there might have been a lot of anti-Trump, definitely a lot of anti-Trump violence committed against Trump supporters. So that could actually be accounted into the increase in Trump, anti-hate crime also. Still hate crime from what I know.
So you think that the hate crime increases in counties where people voted for Trump in margins greater than 60%, you think in those counties, Trump in rural areas, that's where people who voted for Trump face a hate crime?
My personal feeling here is that
violence on both sides for sure. If they feel like they're not being listened to as Democrats or anti-Trump supporters in their own county, yeah, they might take it out on pro-Trump supporters. Yeah, they might.
I'm curious what the FBI defines as a hate crime, because my problem is that I don't think the term can be well defined. It's a heuristic, I think. So you're always gonna have the trouble of determining what is and is not a hate crime. And I guess you could.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think it is going to be really tough it's not going to be like a totally 100% solid thing for a hate crime. There are other possibilities as well. Like, I do think white people can be the victims of hate crimes. That would be part of the data that would take effect there. So I don't think any of that is excluded from a study like this. So yes, in a theoretical world, it is totally possible that all of the hate crimes were Trump supporters. I don't think, based on the other evidence of the election and the rhetoric Trump was using, that white people were the victims of the majority of those hate crimes. I think you'd have to make way more assumptions, You'd have to make way more assumptions that would be the case.
So I posted in the IDW CleanRoom chat that Obama did, in fact, when he entered office, signed a law expanding the definition of hate crimes. So Bush quite literally would have much fewer hate crimes during his presidency due to the sheer fact that the hate crimes that are now listed would be a lot smaller.
Well, Bush had more hate crimes than under Obama, way more hate crimes.
But you asked for proof that the hate
that
crimes
it changed.
list has
Yeah. So
and I've given it.
Right. So I'm gonna go check out that.
There's also, even if the definition didn't change.
Not only that, 9/11 happened during Bush and not during Obama as well. So you got to put that into consideration as well, right? If 9/11 happened during Obama,
right?
I think that would have.
Hold on. So just so it's clear, the expansion of hate crimes include those based on sex. So it wasn't just race.
So transgender, anti-female, anti-male, whatever you want.
That's all that's changing there. That's not changing the racist element. So the part that's relevant to the discussion here of a hate crime and racism, that didn't get expanded. What got expanded is more were included on what would qualify. Those based on the types of crimes that would target people based on sex.
All you said
those
was
crimes
hate
that already happened.
Not say race. You said hate crimes.
Sure, I'll concede the point that it changed. But what's meaningful about the change in a discussion about did not change.
So you're shifting the goalposts.
There's nothing wrong with that. I granted that it changed, but the meaningful part about a discussion on race didn't change.
The meaningful part about a discussion on race didn't change.
Meaningful part.
Yeah, we're talking about racism and hate crimes around racism increasing. So we would need to see that the definition about race increases. And I'm granting to you that it changed. I'm granting you that it changed. The whole point was about Trump's racism and hate crimes around race going up after the Trump effect.
Yeah, but isn't he also called transphobic and all these
anti-LGBT? People said that.
Yes, he is called that. Yeah.
He's literally turning back trans laws. That's what they're saying, and that if he doesn't wins, that he's gonna do more of that. So it's just more than race. It's all like kind of forms of bigotry, so-called bigotry. It's
right, but I was concerned about the racism element. So it's totally true that people are accusing him of being transphobic, but the whole thing from the very beginning, I was talking about the reasons why Democrats. Let me just reframe what this is nested in. The reason why Democrats were against Trump, the reasons why the mainstream media were against Trump weren't just some political agenda, but they had reason to believe he was racist and that his rhetoric was increasing racism in the United States. Then I posted that study. Then I talked about FBI statistics. Okay, I'm conceding the point.
Wait, but what if the result?
But that doesn't change what this is nested within, which is that Democrats didn't just do it because of some political whim. They had reason to believe that Trump's rhetoric was causing these things in the United States.
I mean,
question, how do you know it's not the result of the media falsely reporting and clipping his words, and it's not the other way around? How do you know that didn't increase that as well?
I mean, that could be part of it for sure.
Exactly. So let's be honest here, right? Let's see it from both perspectives if you want to be honest about this. How come there's no discussion about that? How the media could have made this blown up 1,000 times worse than it actually would if they had just honestly reported on his views instead of clipping 90% of his views and falsely reporting that.
Well, let me point this out.
On the media on
let me point out what's important about this. If the media was the one causing the increase in hate crime, then the media taking what Trump said and making it something worse than he said, then are you saying that it's because people who are dumb heard what Trump said as racist, so then they were like, okay, Trump is racist, so now I can be racist? Is that what you're saying?
In fact, a logical fallacy.
What's the fallacy?
You literally just said that the media lying, that the only reason that there'd be an increase in hate crimes over the media lying is that people are stupid.
No, I'm asking Zach, I'm not making a claim. I'm trying to clarify. I'm trying to clarify Soulmate's claim, who was saying, how do you know it's not the media? And so I'm asking a clarifying question. Are you saying that the media manipulated what Trump said, and then people, I'm saying dumb here, that dumb people took it thing and therefore did a racist thing because they thought Trump said that when he didn't say that?
Yeah, that could happen. Either way, yeah. People do stupid things from people listening to people say stupid things. Yeah, for sure. But
okay,
all I'm saying is how do you know how much percent of the media and how much percent of that is due to what Trump has been saying?
Yeah,
we'd have to. There could be multiple variables here at work that you're not accounting for, right? Like, dude, this whole climate control thing, right? Even this alone, the misinformation that is being put out there that Republicans don't trust science is bullshit. A lot of Republicans are saying we just don't know what to do with this information and how to fix all this.
So right, I'm not making the claim Trump is racist. I'm making the claim Democrats had reason to believe he was racist, which means that all of the things you're saying would be criticisms of the Democrats' position. All I'm trying to do is negate the idea that Democrats were anti-Trump just because they wanted to be. That's all my project is here. All of those criticisms can be doing it because of some political whim. They had reasons behind it. It's not some mass conspiracy that you guys were talking about earlier. There were reasons behind why people distrusted Trump. reasons behind
But
why they
isn't
thought he
it
was
though,
racist.
if they're not willing to report the actual words out of his mouth and want to clip everything into 30-second clips, isn't that really disingenuous though? And
I
isn't
think
that
both
a
of these things
political
is
agenda?
happening. I think both of
I
these
want
things
to
is
Yes,
happening.
it's
clarify
both.
So-
It's
something.
both. I agree. It is both.
So,
Yes,
like,
but
it-
I want you to see the other side as well.
The thing with
I
like
see the other side.
the thing with
I want
like
to clarify something. Arco had talked about how we said that there's a conspiracy earlier. What I said specifically is that all of the institutions mobilizing towards the goal of getting rid of Trump looks like a conspiracy, and people have a right to be concerned.
Skeptical, yeah,
Yes.
concerned.
yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. And I think not only do they have a right to be, it's understandable, and as Americans we should really take a step back and say for this whole thing to work, we can't continue without at least a significant amount of the people who are worried about this to not be so worried about it. And I mean, I'm worried that that's not going to happen personally. I want to kind of shift the conversation for a second, because like a lot of the reason for this stream was so that European people could participate. So I'm curious if any European people have anything to say or any questions about the American political process, because it probably is seemingly very, I mean, it's confusing for Americans. I would argue intent, and I'm okay with that. And it might, I don't know if anybody has any questions for that. Like, I know we could talk about the Electoral College again. We talked about that a lot last night. Got me into trouble because I'm an asshole.
What did you do, Jimmy?
I was really, I was out of line. I told someone they were a fucking idiot, and it was not okay. I apologized, but it was my problem is that it wasn't fair or right for me to do that. I felt my little sensors go off of like two things were happening at the same time. On the one hand, it's like I try to have an honest conversation with the people I know who are really conservative, and I know a lot of Trump supporters who are who voted for Trump for reasons that are not the way that are painted. And I try to have honest conversations, especially with the more conservative people who've been conservative their whole lives, as far as I know, and have concerns. And when somebody says majority, like, my problem was the certainty that majority rule is always good. Like, and it was like that's a moral good. And I find, like, to me, that can't be on the table when we're talking about the American federal government. Majority rule cannot ever be on, like, it might be applicable in places. So, like, that's why we have the House. And that's why there's a balance. Like, you get electoral votes both based, you get most of them you get based on your population, and two of them you get because you're a state. But for me, like, the thing is, if it's on the table that majority rule is somehow a moral good, then there's a whole part of the country that is just going to be like, this is what I can feel in my head. I'm doing the conversation. If certain people who I know are sitting with me and watching this, they're going to go, you see, I told you they don't care about us. They don't care about us. They want to get rid of us. They're going to, when we're concerned about something, they're going to say, well, just catch up, move to a city, join us. It's your own fault.
Yeah. So obviously I'm on the left. But I have similar feelings to you, Jimmy. I actually think that, like, the way that the House and Senate are split is a good thing. I think direct democracy should be local.
Same.
Like, we should increase democracy on local levels, and as it goes higher, there should be more checks and balances between majority and minorities.
Same. So maybe it would be helpful to explain the Electoral College, because, I mean, Americans themselves, I don't think, understand it perfectly, and for somebody outside the country who's paying attention to the election, I think it can be very confusing.
Honestly, a lot of the problems with the Electoral College and the elections for the presidency could be solved with the way political lines are drawn in a state, specifically gerrymandering. And Democrats and Republicans are both guilty of this. So their chief justice, or not chief justice, but the justice that retired, I can't remember his name, Stevens, I think. Anyways, he wrote this book about what he would change about American elections. And one is creating a board that wasn't done by political parties, like Democrats are in charge, so then they draw the lines, and the Republicans are in charge, and so they draw the lines of voting. But it's a bipartisan panel where both of them draw the lines for the election to reduce gerrymandering. That was his solution for the Electoral College problems we see.
So let's pause for a second and explain how the Electoral College works, just in case there's anybody who's in who doesn't know. So I'm going to give a really oversimplified explanation of how it works. Basically, like our Congress has the House and the Senate, and each has different powers, and you need to get through both for any law to get passed. The Senate is explicitly not majority rule because every state gets 2 senators regardless of population. So Wyoming, which is by far the smallest in population, still gets 2 senators. The House is different. The House is based on your population. So because this year is a census, this is going to change. And the Electoral College is a attempt to have a similar type of thing for the presidency, which cannot be split. There cannot be 2 offices of the president. There has to be 1. So we have a system where we have an Electoral College, and if anybody like Orisk is, if he's here, he's not. He could step in and correct me. But if anybody wants to step in and correct me, please do. But the Electoral College, every state gets their number of representatives in Congress. So every state gets 2 because they all have 2 senators, plus however many members of the House they have. So Wyoming has 3 because they only have 1 member in the House. So Wyoming has 3 votes. Every state gets at least 3 votes. So it's explicitly not majority rule. And it's because, in my opinion, if it was majority rule, the majority would never have to struggle against anything. And in this situation, the majority has to pull in enough of a, super majority, for lack of a better word, to be effective. Because otherwise they're always going to win. And where you live has a effect on the things you need. So there's a couple things that I would want to say, like in America, and Joe made a good distinction yesterday that before the Civil War, it was the states are versus the states is. The United States are versus the United States is. So before, United States are, we're talking about a country that is primarily states. So you're talking about a group of states which are almost sovereign. And then post-Civil War, it became the United States is, because the federal government grew, obviously, because we had to. I mean, it's in our Constitution that you can secede, and we didn't allow it. So we had to come up with this sort of reasoning for that. And I'm not going to say that that's wrong, but I do think, generally speaking, America, a core American value, I can't speak for the whole country, but I think this is true. A core American value is local when possible, state when local isn't possible, federal at a very last resort. And there are things that can't be done at the state level, like the interstate system, infrastructure. And you could make an argument that things like health care are not state level things. But my argument is that they could be. And we had that whole thing last night where we were saying, like, there are states in this country that want universal health care that could do it themselves and don't. And that's, my opinion is that's a bad idea, because you're not going to sell the country on it when you haven't done it yourself, especially the states which are barely making it, where like your life is hard and you're working really hard and you're barely making it work, but it's what you want. That
I think that also would go in line with like a federal minimum wage.
Yeah.
Like a small state can't handle a minimum wage that like California could handle, for example.
Yes, I feel
And
the
maybe
same.
there are some cities in California that can't handle the minimum wage that San Francisco can handle.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
that's why I think local government should be king.
I agree. That's why the federal
Also,
minimum
I
wage
think-
is supposed to be low. Like it's the federal minimum
Yeah.
wage should be the absolute lowest that any state can afford.
I think instead of it being a set number that has to fit everyone, maybe there would be a way to do it based on like a ratio
Yeah.
of incomes in the state, of what housing costs would be or something like that. Like maybe there could be more of a formula to figure out what would fit your state, where the spirit of it is to try and protect people who are in these I hate to use the term low skilled jobs, but for lack of a better term, low skilled jobs, so that they could earn enough, but it doesn't kill the business to hire them.
Hmm.
Something that would sort of benefit both sides as much as possible.
I am moved by that, but at the same time, I'd be worried that there'd be some reason why some state would just say like, I need to be able to veto that because it doesn't really account for my specific situation. So I think that it's just generally better left to the states. But there are things that like I get why some things need to eventually be federal, right? Or the idea that people believe they should be. So like healthcare is a great example. A lot of people think that it's a right. And I don't feel that way, but I understand it and I understand pushing for it. But I don't I don't think you're going to do that. Like, so let's say California does it, or New York. I live in New York. Let's say New York does a public option, right? If New York could afford it, New York could do it, and we have the population, we have the economy, we have enough to do that. If we did it, other states could say, interesting, and look at it and say, why did that work? And what about that made it work wouldn't work for us? And maybe a bunch of states would say that could work for us if it was federal. But they're not going to say, I have no idea if this works. I don't want to rock the boat. I'm not going to take a bet on it because unlike New York and California and Texas and Florida, if this doesn't work, they're going to recover. I'm not going to recover from that. Or I could.
I think that's I agree with you a lot of what you just said. So I know people give the UN a lot of shit, but I think the UN has a similar idea about universal healthcare. If you look at like their definition of universal healthcare and you look at how people get to universal healthcare, they say it doesn't matter if it's all private or all public. What matters is that it's affordable for everyone, that people can have access to affordable healthcare. If that means that it's a bunch of private institutions that do that, but the vast majority of the population is covered, and they're covered to the point where if they get sick, they're not bankrupt, that's universal healthcare. And leaving it up to the states would mean that a state that has these big cities and these big corporations that can do progressive taxes, and the people agree to doing the progressive taxes, can have a universal healthcare or the public option, like California or New York City or New York State, like you said. And then other states like South Carolina, where they don't have these big corporations like that, but they do have a lot more small businesses that could have these small versions of health insurance that could compete with each other. In a state like that, it would make more sense for there to be this competitive market, like say something Trump was talking about. And the idea of these states having this local authority to decide what would fit best for them, I think is a good thing. The UN does that when it looks at countries. They just have this definition of what the goal is. Here's the goal. Everyone has affordable healthcare. Get to it the ways that you want. Here are some ways we can prescribe if you're going to get to it in these ways. A little bit of government, a little bit of private, a little bit of all this stuff. As far as I know, there's no government right now in the Western world that has all of their health insurance be completely public. The places we talk about socialized medicine have some private insurance still. And that was one of the critiques about Bernie Sanders' plan. He wanted it to be all public, completely public, which was even more like Pete Buttigieg actually said that as a critique of Bernie's position, that not even Denmark, the country he talks about as being an exemplar for healthcare, not even Denmark has the kind of plan Bernie was proposing.
That's kind of interesting. All right, so let's pull back a little bit and say, like, I think healthcare is a great example. The debate over healthcare is a great example of why the Electoral College is the way it is and why our presidential election works the way it does. So I'm not going to claim that the Electoral College is a perfect system, or even if it is right now, that it would be in the future. I don't think it is right now. I think it's in need of some reform, personally. I don't know exactly what that is, but so that's how that works. And then we can get a little more particular because then there's rules. So I thought, I'm confused about this, and I really need to look into it, but I thought that states had control over how they do their how they distribute their electoral votes, but apparently it's not that simple. There's weird examples like Maine and Nebraska, right? Maine and Nebraska have a single district which gets its own electoral vote.
Hey, Jimmy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mean to sidetrack the conversation, but someone posted in the general one text a question, and I think they're from a European country.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. When I go over here, the timer stops. Sanjay.
Oh.
One thing. No, I got it. It's all right. No worry. One thing I don't really understand is why the results do not have a fixed date. In France, you have the results on a specific day at 8 p.m. and you see who wins. Okay, that's interesting. I don't know exactly. Go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt, Jimmy. I have thoughts on that are related to the Electoral College, and maybe I could sort of relate it to Europe. If every country in the European Union set their own deadlines, and then, not if every country, it would be as if every country in the European Union had to have the same results on the same day, like they do in France. Germany would have to have it on a specific day at 8 p.m. So would Italy, and so would Greece, and so would.
Yeah, I was about to make that analogy that, like, you have to think of America as a functioning EU. And like, think of all the complications that you have with the EU. And then I would point out that one thing America has that the EU has to deal with and America doesn't is European nations have thousands of years of individual cultures. And I think that makes it more complicated than America. America doesn't have, we're teenagers in a way, and we started with this idea of there being a federal government, a limited federal government that represents individual states.
Something to add to that is that America is like exponentially larger than Europe is, and our ability to travel and communicate is a lot harder.
That's a good point.
They also leave it all up to the state level to decide those things, so that makes it really difficult to make a fixed deadline. I think didn't someone say at one point that was written? I don't know if this is true, but didn't someone say that was written in the Constitution to leave it on the state level, so it can't really even be something that's changed without amending the Constitution?
Yeah, but there's like this weird loophole that they're trying to use to basically maneuver around, like not get rid of the Electoral College, but force it to represent the popular vote. I personally am against it.
I was talking in regards to making a deadline.
Got it. There's kind of a deadline because the Electoral College has to cast its votes on a certain day, I think. I could be wrong about that.
Right. So we tried to make our elections happen well before that. I mean, there's also a history about why the election day is on the day it is. That was usually the day that like all the farmers would come to sell their crops and yields and everything in big markets. Like that's the day everyone would come to bring all their stuff to sell. So that's the day people were like, oh, while you're here, vote. And it just became the day we voted on.
I want to say something about that, but it derails it.
So there were reasons why it's on that day. And then the Electoral College voting later is so there was enough time for all those votes to be tallied a long time ago. So now in the current context, it's going to change slightly because we have to think about when people would be voting and how people are voting. So some deadlines might have gotten shifted this year because of the mail-in voting being so different because of coronavirus. More people are going to mail in vote. It's going to take a lot longer to count, so we're not going to get results on that day. Some states tried to make it so that they could start counting their votes before the election day so they know the number on the night of. And then other states, for different reasons, were like, nope, no counting until the day of the election. And that means not counting mail-in votes in the numbers of millions. That happened in Pennsylvania. That's why we had to wait so long. But that didn't happen in Arizona, for example. And that's why we got results a lot earlier. Although I think that call was way too early. I think they should not have called Arizona.
I'd really like, Jimmy, I think you tried to open the door for it, but if anyone from Europe wants to kind of give their perspective on what's going on in the American elections, I'd really like to, I'd be really interested to hear what people from other countries
Me too.
View.
Sorry. Hello? Can
Hello.
you guys hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Hey. Just I mean, obviously it's a thing with the media. I'm not sure how much it's just hype. But it seems like there's this tug of war in terms of like Trump and Biden, in terms of Trump is saying, I think there is voter fraud. Biden's like, oh, let's just count every vote, and then they both fighting about the legitimacy of the voting process, and therefore who isn't going to steal the election. I don't know how much of it is true, because I would like to think that for democracy that has been around for some time, you guys would have had the voting process somewhat down by now, and the ability to say commit voter fraud would be less likely than, say, in Zimbabwe, for example. So I don't know how much it's just media saying stuff, or it's actually what's happening there.
I mean, I'll let everybody answer this, but my feeling here is, one, the unprecedented amount of mail-in votes. I think, like I've been saying this since April, that like this was going to happen because, and understandably, because as robust as our election system might have, even if it was perfect in 2016, throwing this wrench at it really, even if it's perfect, the trust in it is going to be to pull back and say, it feels to me like this opens the door to a lot of fuckery. I don't think there has been. I mean, we were all in the politics chat through the whole thing, and we're following it. And Oris was really good about like sharing stuff, and I didn't see anything concerning personally, but at the same time, I get why people are concerned. And I don't think it's great that the president is like declaring victory, and I don't think it's great that he's saying that he won, but at the same time, it is representative, I think, of a significant amount of people who are like, we can't just trust this election the way that we typically do, and we want there to be more this time to let us feel more trust in it. That's what I think.
Okay, is it just because people don't like the results, or I mean, is it just because of the polarization that's happening that is making it almost impossible for either side to trust the process? So say, for example, Trump is about to win, and would Democrats do the same thing? It's like, maybe you guys have actually stolen the vote, whatever. It would be the same thing. Is whoever won is the voting process is just called into question because nobody wants to concede.
It's hard to know what would happen if the opposite happened. I will say this, though. So I'm not trying to say that there's evidence of a problem. But if for 4 years, the media, who is supposed to be the ones informing us of doing two things, informing us of what's happening and asking the questions that need to be asked of the state, of our representatives, has seemingly just utterly failed in that, in any, reasonable way, and also been calling the president like a Nazi and a fascist. Like, when I hear that, I understand being like, you would lie, cheat, steal, and kill to prevent him from winning again. If you actually believe that, if you actually believe that he's a Nazi, that he's a fascist, why should I trust that you're being honest? Because I wouldn't be. If I actually thought the guy was a Nazi, I wouldn't be honest about if I was fucking with the election or if I wasn't reporting on it honestly. And it creates this, to me, this is why it needed, that sort of narrative just should have been stomped out a long time ago, as far as I'm concerned.
So in short, yes, the polarization is the problem.
Yeah, polarization plus COVID and mail-in votes.
To add on to that, there something about what we would probably see if it was the reverse is that up until like a couple weeks before the 2020 election actually happened, Hillary Clinton was coming out and saying that Trump stole the election from her in 2016. Like, that's still a narrative that's going on.
I mean, at some point, you guys are looking more and more like, an African country where people are just doing.
Oh yeah, I mean, I was joking with friends in Argentina that I live in a banana republic, and they're like, "How do you feel?"
So why does everyone blame Russia? At this time, I'm just thinking like,
I think it's just Cold War boomer mentality.
Yeah.
Like, I'm in Russia, and trust me, no one gives a shit.
Are you really?
Yeah, no one's sitting here going, I know a couple of hackers that's working for Putin. Like, we're totally undermining like the democratic process in America. That's what we want to spend our time doing.
I feel like if anything, any Russian intelligence
is the problem, I think.
Yeah, if anything, any Russian intelligence or leadership is more like, this is great for us. This is great. They think we're like, there's just massive disagreement and polarization within the country. Great.
Wouldn't you think it would be so much easier to blame China than Russia? Because China at least has something, to gain from the chaos in America so that they can be the world power. It makes a lot of sense than to blame Russia, because like Russia in terms of GDP and political power is like a lot less, even military power. So I don't know. It just doesn't make sense. It's like saying, I don't know, Australia is doing something wrong to American democracy. It just doesn't make sense to me. But anyways, maybe that's just the
Michael,
Republicans were cynical. They could blame China for Biden.
Michael said in the chat, and I think this is true, Russia did legit low-grade and misinformation campaigns. But I think that's true, but I also think it's been true for a long time, and we probably do the same thing. And
we do it too. Yeah.
I think it's like totally blown out of proportion how much influence that had.
For sure.
I think the Mueller reports had something like they spent like $10 million on Facebook ads.
Well, I always feel like this. There's no if there's smoke, there's fire. In the sense that you can't actually sow doubt in the society if the society is actually cohesive enough. That you don't really see each other in terms of the polarization. I hate you, you're white, red, or blue, whatever it is. If there wasn't that kind of thing, it doesn't matter how much disinformation gets sowed, because people will be like, yeah, that's bullshit. I don't think my neighbor who votes for whoever is a complete asshole for voting this person. I
agree. I completely agree. This is like, we need to be able to say, this is America and we're Americans. And it feels like you're not really allowed to say that anymore unless you're a Trump supporter. And then it's like not really America because you're talking about something else. And like, it just doesn't seem like there's an effective, like I say it all the time. I love my country. I'm a patriot. I don't want to live in any other country. I think my country is the greatest country on the planet. I'm fine with other countries. I'm glad that people like their other countries. I don't want to force people to be the United States or be like the United States, but I love my country. And I think that we need to have that attitude. Like, even if you're critical of it, which you should be, it should be of a place where I think, personally, I think it should be, we all agree that this is the greatest country on earth, and we might disagree on what we should do to fix the problems, but we agree that the problems need to be fixed.
I think the greatest country on earth is a bit of a
yeah, I know.
stretch for me, but I prefer to think that, you know, you all cohabit at the same space, the same society, you know, and therefore for it to succeed, you need to agree on some common good, and that's this identity or this feeling of belonging to this place geographically helps you in terms of making your society move towards a more positive place, as opposed to, you know, it's kind of civil war or unison. You gotta have to make a decision, and your name says it's United States of America, as opposed to just America, which is
this is actually, so last night when I lost my mind and I behaved poorly, it was a great example of both of those things happening in conflict, because the reason I got mad is because it felt like just a destruction of the things needed. Like, we all have to come to the table, but in order to come to the table, there has to be certain things that are not allowed on the table, right? We have to say, like one of them in America, I would say, is free speech and expression. That's my opinion. Another is I don't know. There's to me, it's the Bill of Rights, right? The first 10 amendments. They're like the things that those come to the table. And for me also, that balance between majority, like democracy, and limiting the tyranny of the majority is another thing that has to be on the table. And you're not allowed to bring on the table an elimination of that that tension. So I felt that the table had been shoved over, and I reacted poorly. But my reaction,
the minority also, though.
Well, my reaction became exactly the thing that I'm trying not to allow. You know, the thing I instead of saying no, that's not allowed on the table, I tipped the table over. You know, like, and I think that that's a common thing right now in America. It's like people coming to the table with different things they want on it, and we all feel like some of the stuff being brought to the table should never be allowed. And instead of having a conversation about that, we feel threatened, and we try to just say no. If that's the table, I'm done.
Yeah, I mean, look at all of the teasing about the Civil War. I think a lot of people are like actually like expecting it, and that they feel like it's not happening, and they're getting frustrated over what they've been told. Because like I've seen quite a few people who are like, "I'm ready for the Boogaloo. I'm right now. Let's go."
I saw Boogaloo Boys this summer.
Do you guys feel like you are witnessing the fall of Rome in some way?
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, I feel like I'm living through. So. I feel like we're in the precursor to it.
I don't think this is the fall of Rome. I think this is the fall of the current Republican and Democratic parties. I think what's happening is that the Democratic Party has just seen their progressive wing blown out in these elections, and a lot of moderate liberals were being competed or outmaneuvered in races that they shouldn't have lost.
Yeah.
And that Republicans have secured seats where they shouldn't be able to, and the Democrats are in a total frenzy over this. I was listening to, or I was reading some transcripts from like Nancy Pelosi and other leaders of the House. Like they're very frenzied. Republicans are moving away from market liberalism towards market skepticism. It looks like both parties are moving towards a national healthcare system of some kind. I think that is the future, and I think that we're seeing the death of libertarianism in the Republican Party and a move towards a nationally conservative movement. Trumpism without Trump.
Yeah, I kind of agree. So I felt very nihilistic towards my country and my government between, I'd say, 2012 and 2016. I actually, when Trump won, I became hopeful. Not because I like him, but because it felt like everything about what was predictably happening just got really messed with. What I saw is this downward spiral. It instead, no, I guess downward spiral is the wrong turn. This sort of slow descent where nobody realizes how low they are. It just got totally messed with in a way that simultaneously forced us to hit this rock bottom and pay attention, and also gave us the recognition that we could do something about it. So I was deeply hopeful when Trump won, because I was like, this is good. This is the standard politics is just, it's over now. And then I was really disheartened by the Democrats' response to it, because it felt like just 4 years of, return to this normal that I hated. And this election, weirdly, like I said at the beginning of this stream, I think it's perfect in a lot of ways, because the Democrats did not win this election. Biden won, but the Democrats did not win this election, I don't think. The Republicans won in the sense that, like Zach just outlined, they are places they shouldn't be, and how close the election was for president, and how many of the votes that Trump got came from minorities, and like the Democrats didn't win, but
Yeah, this election is definitely a rebuke of the argument that demographics is destiny.
yeah, it's hard to say if either party really won. Woke lost. The woke lost. Which is great. I think the woke lost, the polls lost, which I'm so happy about. Like, I cannot imagine in 4 years people making the same mistake again of saying, well, the polls say. Polls are irrelevant.
Nate Silver.
The
More
polls
like
are,
Nate Cardboard.
yeah, Nate's Nate Silver, just like, he's done. Who's gonna believe him anymore? But so the Republicans are in a great spot, I think, because I said this earlier. Moving forward, I think Trump stays part of the party in a way where he's a useful idiot, and I don't say that condescendingly. I mean it as like, he's going to be able to say things in the way they need to be said, but that are sort of off-putting, in a way that get it out there so that other Republicans can go, whoa, calm down there, buddy. But then say, but you know what? There's some truth in what he's saying, because both things kind of need to happen. We need somebody who's abrasive like Trump to push through and say the unsayable thing, so that other people can respond to the thing in what he's saying that needs to be responded to.
For the whole freedom of speech, it just seems not very free then. That's what you need, like a useful idiot in that way. That the society is so constricted about what you can say. It makes no sense to me. In what your country prides itself on. For me, I think you should be able to say the truth, whatever it may be. You should be aware that truth can hurt as well, and you can't be just blunt and be like, here is. You need to be mindful, because information can be used for and against you. So I just find it sad that for a country which has this tenet of truth and freedom of speech doesn't exercise it in a way that benefits the average person. That's what I think is a bit sad. Or that's it seems to be have gone. The whole media, the whole everybody's covering their own ass and saying things that they just want without a realization of the effects it has downstream of them. That makes it difficult to have a good discourse.
I don't really disagree with that. I think the distinction I'd make is there are things. So a representative, to take the word very literally, is supposed to represent the people. And unfortunately, like,
is it?
Unfortunately, part of what we want, part of honest representation of a significant part of the country, is not something you want in a leader. Like, does that make sense? Like, you want to be able to say, fuck you to everything, and like be uncouth and just be like, I'm so like Trump. Trump is just the middle finger to the whole thing.
Yeah, but why is that a good thing? That's the thing I don't understand. I'm sure you can present the truth in a way that doesn't rub everybody the wrong way. I mean, why create more enemies when you're supposed to be running a whole entire country? You want everybody in the country to do well, majority anyways, in the sense that.
But that's the honest feeling, I think, of a lot of people. Like, to truly represent the way that the country feels in a significant way could not be said politely. It's like if you go to a family dinner, right? And you have a history with these people, and there's like tension that's been building and building and building, and the only way to get over it is to have that blowout, is to have that big blowout where you're like, I hate you for this reason. You did this and this and this, and I'm so fucking angry at you, and just let it out.
So are you trying to say that the whole America has been repressed for years and years and years, and Trump is just a symptom of this repression, and hence the verbal barrage of, shall I say, absolute crap sometimes? Yeah.
I think the illusion of decor in politicians has prevented honest discourse about what's actually happening to the population.
Polite and honest.
What?
Can you not be polite and honest at the same time? Is it something? It's not mutually exclusive domain, surely.
But what if you're honest? Like, what if the honest thing is impolite, like exclusively? Like
what? For example, are you saying this person lied? Is that impolite? No. This person fucking lied to my face.
No, it's like, how do you express rage? How do you express the feeling of rage in a way that isn't rage? How do you express, like, you can't.
Surely you can. I mean, if you look at some of the great speeches of, say, what's his name? No, it's completely lost. It came out. I've just lost it. But some of the great speeches of the war president. What's his name? World War II.
FDR.
FDR. And in Britain.
Oh. Oh, God damn it! I caught it.
Name, the guy with the lip.
Churchill.
Churchill.
Yeah.
Yes. So he's abrasive, but he was not Trump level abrasive in terms of uncouth. He was very passionate about what he said, and you can hear it, but there was no need for that type of antagonistic grammar and vocabulary, so that it's just basically us versus them type of
but can you imagine a situation where even that is not enough to communicate properly the feeling?
No. I'm just trying to think, as a leader, you should be presenting the best of us, not the worst of us. When we want to reach for the very worst of the very base of our nature.
I agree. I agree. It's not, but that's why I think the Republicans are in a great situation, because they're going to have Trump's ability to say the things, and then somebody else can distance themselves from the more. I think that the country needs an outlet, like just needs to be able to say, I'm so fucking angry and I don't want to be polite.
Yeah, that's why you have comedians. You guys have great comedians. I mean, I don't think.
I mean, we have great comedians that have been horribly and increasingly suppressed recently.
So who's suppressing them? This is what I don't understand. Who is doing the suppression here? Like, if you have Trump as like the person who can say whatever they want, and it's just verbatim, it is what it is, then who is suppressing this free speech that you guys can't have a proper conversation? Therefore, you then again need another Trump. That's why I don't understand. What is going on here?
Woke people.
Yeah, for example, in universities, comedians like Jerry Seinfeld and Chris Rock refuse to go because even they are apparently ostracized and now unwelcome in those spaces. Um, uh, there are multiple videos of this happening, and now conservative speakers in the universities over the last few years, which has died out a lot more than it was before, they wouldn't be allowed to have speeches because the security necessary to have would be too much for the university to handle, which they allowed by not letting the campus police or the city police to stop protesters, essentially.
I just feel like
And
people just need to be slapped in the face more often, and
destroyed
then
a
you
lot
won't
of
have this
property.
problem. Like, oh, you talking shit?
I
Okay,
agree.
bang. You know, like,
Yeah,
oh, it
Michael
hurts
Tyson
you.
said it the
Well,
best
this will
way.
hurt even
Yeah.
more. Like, I don't know. Like,
Yeah, but
why is it?
it's difficult. I mean, like for example, I stand to lose not too much for speaking my mind, but I was like attacked in the spring because of I was saying very reasonable things. I had some criticisms of or that was, I guess that was May. I had some criticisms of ACAB. You know, I was saying, like, I think that this is a moment where we should pay attention, and there's some problems with policing, and when there's probably some reform here. But you know, I don't think saying all cops are bad and defund the police is helpful. And like, I was brutally attacked for that, and like, no one's gonna stand up for me who has any public image, because they stand to gain nothing from it, and they stand to lose a lot, because like, if I go on my Instagram right now, I can guarantee you I can find at least one person whose story is canceling somebody.
Can I ask, is that a majority of the actual public, or is it just a very, loud minority, and they've just overtake, there's just too many of them as trolls on Twitter or social media, but majority of people just don't give a shit.
It's probably a minority. But
yeah, so why is the minority holding the majority hostage is what I don't understand.
Because no one's going to come to the defense of the realities of being a flawed human. Like, that would just insinuate that you yourself are whatever is being accused. I mean, it's the same type of thing in the Soviet Union, right? Like, you inform on your neighbor because you don't want to be accused.
I'm just thinking, at some point, if you just let it happen, it just goes to very bad places.
I agree with you, and I'm trying to figure out the proper, like, the other day, I messaged a couple friends, and there's one person in particular who he attacked me in the spring, and I've patched things up, and I tried to be friends, and he's now attacking other people, and I told a bunch of friends, I was like, I'm not associating with this person anymore. I'm not, if he is somewhere, I'm just going to leave. I'm not going to be there. And even that is risky. Because he has clout.
I don't know. Maybe I'm just living in a very different world. I don't meet those people ever at all. I don't even know where they are, except on the internet. Like, seems like a big thing on the internet, but in real life, I've never ever seen or met such a person who's woke or saying anything like that. Like,
wait till you do. It's
the problem is it's everywhere though.
Is it
There
everywhere?
are communities on Reddit like surfing. No. This is the problem though. There's a few of them that can infiltrate into little different spaces, right? So for example, on Reddit, in knitting communities, right? On surfing communities, these people started coming in and trying to censor free speech and trying to censor things that were said because they said it was non-inclusive, racist, sexist, transphobic, whatever, all these things. This is the problem, that they're using these accusations as weapons in every space to gain some kind of power or to just make everybody feel like shit just for being there.
So who's giving them this power is what I'm trying to understand. Like, you can...
because if you're a liberal, you can't argue against that. If you're a progressive, you can't argue against
why not?
that.
If it's
And then you have to
bad
take
argument, it's a bad argument. Why can't you?
It's the mob. It's the mob.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
like on Reddit, for example, like most of the people are obviously skewed left. Pinterest as well, maybe Tumblr. So like it's just the majority is
So-
always going to be liberal in these spaces.
I
no
would
matter
like to
what.
point out that according to Reddit's own statistics, when they did polling, the vast majority of users on Reddit skew to the right. But what it is the vast majority of posters, who are actually a very small minority of people, are quite well to the left, like a lot to the left. The vast majority of comments, like 95% of comments, are made by like, I don't know, something like less than 10% of the Reddit user base.
So basically, we just need more participation from the majority, as in, you know, to solve the problem, because then you get actual real representation of what's happening.
People need to
right?
feel empowered
actually
to
don't know if
say
that's
what they
complete-
actually
well-
think. I think people need to feel empowered to say what they actually think. However, every time you bring anything up, it will be framed in such a way that you would have to talk about race. You would have to talk about sex. You would have to
But
talk.
who cares?
I mean, it's
Like, why is that even important? Like,
it
unless, of course,
shouldn't be.
you and I are talking about, like, you're telling me about your personal, I don't know, birth giving experience because you're a woman. Okay, that may make a difference about male or female, but other than that, like, you know, I don't know. Never met a person just thought, you know, your
But-
color.
We could try to do it to you. I bet we could. I bet you, me and Zach and Soulmate could do it to you right now if we really.
To what?
Oh, I'm ready.
Like we could just
Can
do
we?
it. We could just get you to want to leave or just be quiet. I mean, but it's going to be harder because you are anonymous and we don't have access to your regular life.
But isn't that the whole point of the internet? Like, you're on Reddit or anything,
Well-
you're anonymous, so you should be able to say these things.
Yeah, but
Speaking
but the
from
problem is in
experience-
real life.
Not on Facebook.
Yeah, the
Speaking from
problem is in
experience,
real life.
Facebook and real
anonymity
life. Yeah.
doesn't help. Won't actually save you if you
People will doubt you.
well,
Like there are
no.
hackers who are on
Well,
the other side.
If people want you to be silenced on a platform, even if you're anonymous, they will silence you just through sheer harassment.
I think the bigger problem is just is in real life. Like trying to think. Perfect. I'll use my own example. I really like Campaign Zero. I like their response to. They've been talking about police reform forever. I like it. I don't think it's perfect. I don't think anything's perfect. Really like it. So I posted about it. Right. Canceled.
Why?
Because
Wait,
he's not.
Who canceled you?
What?
Who canceled you?
A woman who claims to be black but had a Jewish name and looked white to me. So
Wait, so how come
Was it
her
Rachel Dolezal?
opinion matters more than yours? Like, that's why I'm
because
trying to
no one's
understand.
gonna
If she
stand up to
gets-
her.
If she gets enough people, she gets enough people with hashtags to harass them, it'll come to a point where no business will want to do business with you because of the association. And then on top of that, not enough people on your side will defend you because of the exact same negative connotation.
Yeah, like I don't like thinking
It's
about
like
the fact
it's like
that
if you get called a racist or a neo-Nazi, right? And your best friend's a neo-Nazi, some people just might not associate you just because they might fear that you might be a neo-Nazi, even though you're not. And then your friends, some of them who have known you for 20 years, will be like, yeah, his best friend's a neo-Nazi, but I know he's a good guy. But like now it's just like all of that distinction is gone completely because of social media and the effect it can have on your business, on your personal life, on everything.
So in my experience, in my example, the problem was that I was providing an alternative to all cops are bad and to defund the police. So Garrett, I happen to have white skin, right? So one, I can't possibly know anything. Nothing I say could possibly be relevant because I don't have that experience. This woman apparently is black. I don't see it. And other black people chimed in, of course, saying that that the Campaign Zero guy who is black is and also was a part of Black Lives Matter initially, but because he's come out against certain things in Black Lives Matter, he's a racist. He's a white supremacist. He's an Uncle Tom. And my talking about it from my position of privilege and ignorance, because I don't know what it's like to drive while black. Like this is the kind of shit. Like it's just like you get a barrage of this. And how do you defend yourself? You
I don't
can't.
know, laugh it off because it's just so stupid.
You say that, but like have you ever been in a social situation where you have a mob of people who are telling you that you are like a racist, sexist piece of shit, and like have no
Honestly, I have
problem
no.
with ruining your prospects in anything you want to do moving forward. So like I had a podcast. I don't do it anymore. It's not worth it. I was gonna have a conversation. This is funny. Last Christmas, I met this kid, young
I
guy.
gave you my heart.
What?
Sorry, yeah, continue.
This,
Last Christmas I gave you my heart, but continue. Yes.
so he's young and he's like so well informed on military history, and I had a really fascinating conversation with him. And he was obsessed with the Civil War, and he does Civil War reenactments, and he wanted to come on my podcast and talk about it. And he couldn't until after school, which was June.
Okay.
And he wanted to come on my podcast and talk about Civil War reenactments. And I had to tell him, I can't do that. I can't for myself. I definitely can't for you, because I don't know what's going to happen to you. It's not responsible of me. It's not responsible of me to have that conversation publicly with a kid.
What? I'm so confused. What's wrong with talking about Civil War? It's just history. What's the big deal?
Well, he dresses up as a Confederate. He treats that as though it's, I mean, there's a million things that they say.
But isn't that the whole point of the freedom of speech? You can say whatever it is. It can be as stupid as you want, as offensive as you want, and you just face social consequences of doing so, right? Isn't that the whole point?
You face the social consequences of everybody all over the country, all over the world that disagrees with you. And then they can use that social capital and social power against you so that you are untouchable as a person doing business anymore, or a public figure.
Man, sounds like a episode of Black Mirror. When,
yes, this is what we're living through, and this is the response that I think that rural America is opposing.
I said it before in an earlier, I think I was either a town hall or one of these podcasts, but there needs to be something like similar to the '64 Civil Rights Act, but for like the First Amendment, where like the government actually does come in and like protect people's First Amendment rights against private corporations and private organizations.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a collusion of factors, like what's going on. I don't think it's just one issue that you guys are contending with. It's a multitude of issues, and this whole election is just a symptom of the bigger underlying problems you're dealing with at the moment. It looks like that to me. I don't think it's like just people being woke or just too much power, certain group, or it's just economy, or it's just COVID. It's whole collusion of these things, and that makes it very, very difficult to resolve.
Yeah, I mean, identity politics have not helped. Like, here's another. I've talked about this example. Where I work, everybody works with people who suck at their job, right? That's the thing. Everybody has somebody they know who just sucks at their job and makes your life miserable because they ask the same fucking question over and over again and never listen and never figure out how to do anything. There's a woman like that.
They don't have to.
There's a woman.
If I ask you every single time and you do it, then I never have to learn. Right.
Yeah. So there's a woman like that at where I work, and at least once a week, once every other week, she would come to my desk and ask the same goddamn question. And one time she came over, and I was having a rough day because a bunch of things went wrong, and I was dealing with it. And I was just like, I can't today. And I went like this. I went, and I turned to face her quickly, right? Yeah. And she backed away as though I had just done something terrible. And suddenly it entered my brain that it mattered that she's black and that she's a woman. And I hated that thought. I felt sick to my stomach that it mattered, because I had already had to deal with HR for some shit that I didn't do anything wrong in. I just didn't take a stance. I just didn't say anything. I already had to deal with that. And now I'm like, this fucking woman's going to go to HR and complain about me, a white male, and the aggressive attitude I had towards turning towards her and how I made her feel unsafe. And I was just like, I fucking hate that I live in this world. I hate that I live in this world where like it's racist. I now have to think that the way I respond to somebody has to adjust based on the color of their skin. Like,
you guys, I don't understand. When did it become okay to not grow a pair? When did it become okay to live as such cowards? Like, if someone came up to me and said, you know what, I think you're a bitchy, crazy, narcissistic, fucking piece of shit. I'm not gonna stand there and start crying, go, oh, you're so mean to me. You said some unsafe word to me. Oh my God, my life is ruined because of you. Because I'm a piece of shit for listening to that person and taking it personally. Because that's just nonsense, really.
I feel the same.
What the fuck? Like,
I've said this at work before. Like, I had to go. I got sent home because I was like, look, how I deal with you in person as a person outside of work is one thing. If I'm rude to you, I get it. Like, not fair. You shouldn't be rude to people in your personal life. But when I'm at work and we're talking about work, you're not a person. I'm not a person either. Like, we're here to get the fucking work done, and you're not helping. So I'm critical of you as a cog in this machine. You're not performing your duties properly, and other people have to pick up the slack. And
it sounds pretty racist, sexist, homophobic, transphobic to me, man. I don't know, man. You're like crossing this line right here, man.
That's the thing, though, and it actually makes it so that white people are better off. You know, like it creates a situation where white dudes are better off because nobody gives a shit how we feel.
Only white people are going to get hired now, and only males are going to be hired now. Dude, I've talked to people who own businesses who are thinking this way now, that they don't even want a 1% chance of being accused of Me Too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but that's just... I mean, like...
And my sister lost a mentor because he said that. She's in the finance business. She lost a mentor during the height of Me Too because he's like, I don't even want a 1% chance. I can't risk it. I have family. I have friends. I have, kids. I have college to pay for. I can't risk this. Now what do you do?
Wow.
Well, this is why we're supposed to have something called a fucking legal system that goes like, hey, you're innocent until proven guilty. All right? Isn't that the whole point of this? Didn't you guys have this system? It's still working,
HR
right?
is not a court system.
Yeah,
HR
the private
is not a court system.
Yeah.
That's the problem. Is like
2018, 2019, Trump had to like step in with an executive order actually forcing universities to have to use the legal system because what they were doing is they were setting up these kangaroo courts to screw over men that were accused.
I think the Obama administration kind of mandated that, didn't they? They kind of instructed people to resolve.
I don't know.
I think there was something where they were asking universities to resolve these complaints within the university, which is terrible to me.
I mean, like they created kangaroo courts where like the accused didn't have rights. They couldn't actually fight the charges. They couldn't face their accuser. They couldn't bring forth evidence.
Yeah, actually, a great example is that guy, the mattress girl.
What mattress girl?
I forget her name.
The artist who dragged her mattress around campus.
Yes, and it turns out she was just full of shit. She just lied, like, pretty clearly she lied that this person she accused of raping her didn't do that, and if anything, she was being really kind of aggressive about what?
Did she go to jail for slander? Because that's slandering. Isn't that against the law?
No.
What do you mean? If you go around saying shit about someone that's not true and you make it a bad effect for them, it's a slandering law. It's like
she's not publishing anything. She's just having an opinion. You know, she's just pressing charges. You'd have to prove that she was intentionally lying. It's hard to do.
Well, what do you mean intentionally lying? It didn't happen. You lied about it. You didn't think it did happen. It's not like he raped me,
but he didn't rape
me.
But then
there's a difference between like I thought he switched on the light, didn't switch on the light. That's very different.
Yeah, but most situations are not binary like that. They're not cut and dry. A decision has to be made, but you don't want to dissuade people from reporting. Like, to be fair, going to the cops about rape is not a great situation for women right now. It just isn't. Like there's not a lot like the system is not set up to handle rape the way it happens today, and it needs some serious reform. To be fair, like that's actually definitely true. But like I forget I forget how they have like rooms full of rape kits that have like the test they've never completed. Like they never
Yeah.
there's
Use them.
there's a problem. Like there's definitely a problem. But you don't fix that problem.
Which is an argument for more funding for police,
Yeah.
by the way, right?
Yeah. You need better policing. You need
Yeah.
better, structures to deal with these issues. But I don't think, that it takes away the fact that you can go around and yelling to people that someone raped you and
Well,
it didn't happen.
he-
And you have absolutely no consequences.
He
That
did
doesn't
end up
make
winning
sense.
a lot of money because he won a lot of money from the school, I think, because no one would let him go to their school. He couldn't get into any school, and his employment, like it was tough for him to get a job. So he won a lot of money, but like personally, I'd take an education and a job I love over a lot of money any day.
Did you guys ever
have
watch
you heard
the
about-
Netflix series that talks? There was an episode with what's it called? That guy who played Jon Snow.
No.
What's his name? Whatever his name is. I'm very bad with
Kit
that.
Harington.
Yeah, Kit Harington, and he did an episode where basically he was accused of rape, and it turned out that this woman basically lied so that she can get like blackmail him to give her a promotion at his job, basically. And obviously, when they found out he didn't, then he requested the police like, well, what are you gonna do now? You need to, offer an apology. You need to put things right because you arrested me in front of my colleagues, in front of my family, and now they all think I'm a rapist even though I didn't do shit. Right? And because there's no recourse, this is the point. And I think there should be some. There is a problem with the justice system that when you are falsely accused of something, there doesn't seem to be a recourse for you to be put right, even if you were found not convicted.
What is that an episode of?
See, I'm really bad with names. I need to go. What did I look at Netflix? Just give me a sec. It was something that I was watching.
You said Jon Snow?
Yeah, Kit Harington was in it, I guess. He played the guy who was accused.
Oh. It was just the guy.
Yeah.
Never mind. I was gonna say
it kind of
doesn't sound like Game
compounds.
of Thrones.
Yeah. It kind of no, it does not.
Criminal.
It's called Criminal.
It's
Oh,
called
okay.
Criminal.
Okay, I'll check that out.
Season 2. Season 2.
It kind of compounds too because I can't remember when the mattress girl thing happened, but I remember myself retreating. Like when you see this happen and as more evidence comes out, it reaffirms that this guy didn't do anything wrong. It's tough because like then Me Too happens and it's like, okay, clearly there's a problem here. Something's wrong. And then that goes too far. And like, what's his name from Parks and Rec? That whole thing. It's just.
Aziz Ansari.
Yeah, but so like as it
He got through it though.
He did get through it, but it disincentivizes engaging in it because it feels too dangerous. But engagement is what's needed, I think. I think more people need to engage in the problem, which is that like on the one side, women are clearly in a very bad situation in a lot of places, in a lot of ways that are really fucked up and hard to prosecute and hard to label like when it's a crime and when it isn't. And that's a difficult thing. And then on the other side, you got dudes who are like, yeah, but why would I engage in this? Like, why? I'm not gonna risk myself. I'm not gonna risk anything. I'm not. Why would I?
Hookup culture.
Yeah, hookup culture is just. It's just like.
You've got hookup culture. You've got alcohol. You've got a lot of things that's compounding the issue. And I think look, people in power will try and use their power for personal gains, and sometimes. And there are always going to be people who are going to lie to use systems for their personal gains. It's just a game theory. So as long as we understand that as human beings and our human nature, surely there is some ways to mitigate these issues in the legal system as well as in the societal level. The fact is that we've let a lot of problems run away to such an extreme that it become toxic to even discuss it honestly. I think the issue. I don't think it's a man against woman. I don't think it's such a black and white thing that we're dealing with. I just hate the fact that we have such non-nuanced conversations about it. Or trust women, okay? I don't know. There's a whole bunch of bitches I never trust. I don't shit.
I don't trust people like just default.
Character.
You know,
It's the character of your person that I judge on. I cannot judge whether you're male or female. That doesn't give me much to work.
I agree. Just to loop it back because we got 15 minutes left. The fact, so these are all good conversations. Ones I try to have, especially the issues between the sexes. I think are like vitally important to figure out. But the fact that these conversations aren't able to be had in any serious way in a large, the media. I don't feel like politics has really addressed the actual problems with Me Too. I don't think anything's actually been addressed in any serious or nuanced way. And these are all individual issues. Now imagine the person who represents the leader of the whole thing and the conversation around that. Like if we can't have the conversation about men and women and the problems with that and the problems of power, how in the world are we going to have a conversation about the legitimacy of an election for the leader of the free world?
Wait, is it how I know this is going to be a very silly question, but how much real life impact does it have whoever your president is going to? That's what I'm trying to understand. Is there real, if, I don't know, Mugabe is your president tomorrow, how much would your life be different as an average American?
I'm live streaming. Sorry.
It depends.
Like, would
I
you
think,
just be out of your house and
ask,
your future's gone, you're just gonna kill yourself?
Yeah.
I don't know.
No. Technically, there isn't because the president doesn't have too much powers, right? He's the commander in chief. He vetoes laws. He doesn't have too much power, but it's the direction I think that people think that their country's gonna go toward that scares them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but if the person doesn't have much power, you have three branches of government, and the fact that most things that affect you personally is going to be on local political level, then why such a big show and dance?
In my conversations with people, I think the most honest response is, I'm disgusted with how this person represents me to the world. And I kind of get that. I think that if you're that worried about how the rest of the world sees you, I don't know why you need to be that worried.
I don't know. You travel. I mean, I travel a lot, and someone have never come up to me and said, I think you're a piece of shit because your president is a piece of shit. Like, okay. Well, if that was the person who thought that way, then I'll be like, well, you obviously have some issues, so I'm okay not knowing you. See ya.
I feel the same.
That's what you do, right? Like, you wouldn't be like, oh my god, I can't believe they think I'm a piece of shit because I'm president. I need to change my president. Like, yeah.
Move to where you're at. Maybe I'm in the wrong place now.
That's another voter turnout for this election is the biggest we've had since 1900.
Bro.
Right?
Yeah,
so
it's crazy.
It is good, but here's a question: why isn't turnout like way higher in local elections where it matters more?
Apathy.
Yeah, that's
it's just like straight up apathy.
I really think that we've inverted it.
Can I explain it a little bit?
Yeah.
It's because when people report the pothole on their street and it never gets fixed, no matter who's in charge, because there's maybe more economically efficient places to spend your money at, they're not going to trust either side.
Mm-hmm.
This has been happening in the Midwest and in even big cities like Boston. For example, in 2014, we had the most snow in like 100 years, okay? We had 5-6 big blizzards over a period of a month, about 6 weeks. All the snow inside the city of Boston was cleaned because they needed for everybody to move around. All the neighboring not so nice places, there were 12 to 14 foot of packed snow preventing people from getting to the train station, waiting at bus stops, traveling on sidewalks for about 3-4 months.
That's fucked.
You know,
Okay, so when people see this, no matter who's in charge, apathy. I talk to so many people, immigrants and Americans alike, who are just sick and tired of the entire system. They don't trust whoever on either side. That is
yeah,
the
I
real
think that's
answer.
true.
They're
But
not for the
I'll
people.
go one further. I think it's apathy combined with self delusion. And what I mean by that is the truth is you can be more effective at the local level, but if you lose, it's more on you. You know, you need to do something. You need to do more. You need to, you know what I mean by that? It's like
Yeah.
you weren't successful, so you're going to have to try harder or try something else. But if it's at the federal level, it's so far away from you that you can blame a million things. You know, you don't have to. And I think that putting all of the energy at that such a far distant thing says what I really want is to feel sure that I'm right and that I don't have to do anything different, and that it's somebody else's fault, and um, yeah, all those things. Because like I've gone to town
It's a
hall
lack
meetings.
of
Like
person.
people don't go. People don't go.
So it's a lack of personal responsibility and engagement, is what you're saying.
I think that if you are a person who claims to really care about politics, but you don't know anything that's going on in your local environment, I think you're full of shit. Like I think that you just wanna feel like you care about it in a way that there's no stakes for you personally.
So do you think you guys should enact um, compulsory voting in the local level?
That's an interesting idea.
I don't know if you want that either, though, because even most of the working class doesn't have time nowadays because it's so expensive in America. Like houses are so much more expensive than it used to be and stuff. So what's happening is that people have to work more, and then both parents have to work if they want to have any meaningful savings. So it's really hard to keep up and go to those town hall meetings or even to their kids' recitals and all these things now because there's just so much more harder to get by because the quality of life has degraded.
Yeah, but if that continues, then you basically say, I don't have time to engage, and therefore you don't engage, and then the political scene just gets worse, and then your life gets worse, and your children's lives get worse, and it's just a vicious cycle. So,
Hmm.
I'm thinking about compulsory voting in the sense that, well, everybody needs to vote, right? And then the local people will feel like shit, they all gonna have to vote. So they better vote for someone, better do something about it. And perhaps you'll see a better turnout, sorry, of voters as well as turnout outcome for the local elected leaders.
Hmm.
Perhaps.
Well, I
There's
mean, then there's also
Um,
voters like my sister who like just don't care.
You always gonna have
A lot of
apathetic.
people just don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
There's so
it's
many
also
things to
really
focus on.
it's hard to get good local information. Like trying to look up local judges or a lot of
Yeah,
representatives on the ticket. You just Google their name, there's almost nothing.
they have like
And
no
That's a good
statement.
point.
like there's like 20 people you're supposed to go through, and like for all the different positions, like no one has the time even if they or energy even if they do care.
Hmm.
It
This is why I think it's not
W-
just a compulsory voting and then all your issues are solved now. No, of course not. The fact that money in campaign and how it comes out, how advertising comes out, and having an independent media, you've got all those things that needs to come into play. I'm just, voicing a idea that perhaps could help with the, issue that the average American actually faces, as opposed to this whole big song and dance about who gets to be the leader that doesn't really do much for them on a day-to-day basis.
Hmm.
that makes sense.
It's also a problem, I think, with even if we think about the coast to the Midwest, right? The middle America versus the coast, right? There's already a huge difference in the way people think, right?
Yeah.
But then you also go to each individual state, and there are so many regions in the last maybe 3-4 elections where two counties will literally win the entire state for the Democrats, and the rest of the place is literally all red. right?
Mhm.
So now those people in the red in every state who are constantly getting beat by 2, 3, 4 cities are feeling like none of their votes mean anything for the last, what, 50, 60 years.
Yeah, it's New York
And I
State
think
for you.
there's such a, and that it's such a big disconnect that I see. And it's like, if you go on Twitter or Reddit or any of these social media websites, like people have no problem shitting on poor white people, but they have every problem shitting on any other people of color who are poor. I mean, the disconnect in that is so huge. I'm like, do you not understand the things that you attribute to poverty to poor people of minority also do the same to poor whites? Do you not understand that like Kentucky doesn't have the resources that cities have? Do you not understand that for you to go to a homeless shelter, you have to go to a city which is like 4, 5, 6 hours away from you if you become homeless? Like these are real issues that you don't even understand, and like you just deride and look down on hillbillies and rednecks
Oh
and
yeah,
Southerners and Trump voters and all
I've
these things.
I've seen
That's
so
really
many
true.
posts about people like cheering when like some Trump supporter gets like evicted from their home because they're poor and they're living in poverty, and that Trump was their big hope that they'd be able to like get out of poverty, and they're just like, aha, you deserved it, you voted against your best interests, haha, you should have voted left.
Yeah, they're voting against your
It's
best
becoming a
interest.
general sentiment.
Voting
Yeah.
against your best interests is the statement you make when you're wrong
It's
and
just
you don't want to
condescending.
admit it.
It's just condescending. Like
Yeah,
that's
it's
that's
very condescending. Very, yeah.
that's why I brought up the road to Wigan Pier yesterday.
Yeah,
You
that's
like
a
you don't
great book.
understand. You don't live the life. You don't understand. You might be right that this would be better for them. You might be right. It's possible. It's very possible. But if you can't speak to them, if you if you look down on them so much that you think, well, they just couldn't possibly understand why this is better for them, you will never succeed. You just
Of course
won't.
not. You're supposed to treat each other as individual as opposed to a whole group or mass of persons, right? And the fact is that I think because there's a disconnect between people in general, that's why it's so easy to label the other, whatever you want to call them, right? And it's also the idea of the win-lose situation whereby you didn't vote for who I wanted, I couldn't get what I wanted, so you should suck it. So anything bad happened to you, great, it's deserved. As opposed to maybe nobody has your best interest. And the fact that if we don't help one another, we're screwed in the long term. That's it.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. Just to bring up one other thing with the localized issues. About a year ago, I started being really interested in schooling, like the cost of education, and well, first I got interested because I bought a house and I started paying property tax, and I was just like, holy Jesus fucking Christ, and first I got interested for purely selfish reasons. I looked up like a private school that is close by that is pretty expensive, and I was like, what's the cost per student? And it was like a fraction of the cost per student in the public school. And so I was like, okay, something's wrong. Like it doesn't, I'm not saying it should be the same or even cheaper if it's public. It just, something's wrong. And then I started looking into it, and a friend of mine said, look at Florida. So I looked at Florida schools, and the more I look at it, the more I think they're really onto something. And every time I tried to talk about it, nobody seemed interested. They were very interested in making fun of Florida, which I get, Florida man, ha ha ha. But like, let's take it serious. Like, look at it. Like, Florida actually, their schools have improved since they made this change. It seems to be doing really well for them. The education, their test scores have been improving every year. The cost of it has gone down. Most of it has been effective at getting rid of administrative bloat. Meanwhile, this year here, obviously there was cutbacks. We lost reading teachers in my district. We lost social workers in my district. We lost We lost a whole bunch of things that are like, but we didn't. You know, we didn't lose administrators. We didn't lose those. They're really expensive administrators that are like half of the budget. I'm going on a tirade. But the point is, I tried to talk about this with people, and nobody seems interested. Nobody seems to care. Like they'll be like, yeah, you know, and then they'll like somehow divert it to this is a problem at a higher level. It's just like, no, we have like this is something we can solve. I live in New York State. We have a lot of money here. We're in a good spot. And like, actually, Joe's here. I don't know if he's listening. Joe's run for office at a more local level.
I just want to point out the timer ran out.
Yeah, I saw. I don't have to give Hillary a ride to work anymore, so I'm gonna let it go a little bit. Thank you. I don't know if Joe's there or listening, but I think he's shared experiences of it's really hard to get people interested. And then you're fighting an uphill battle within a party that has set its ways. I think if we had increased interest at more local levels, somebody like Joe would be able to be more effective because the interest, I think, somebody like Joe would be able to garner interest in some changes. Maybe not, who knows? What do you think, Joe? You're there, you're not muted. Are you? Maybe he is. Let me look.
No mic, Joe said.
Okay. No mic.
Can we get an F in chat?
Oh, he's listening at work. My bad.
Oh my gosh.
Wow, I'm telling you, boss.
Boss will be so upset with you, the fact that you're engaging this, doing your work time. My gosh. I need to report you to HR.
Yeah.
Nice.
So yeah.
Also, I want to point out that a lot of the problems that we have in our police system and in other parts of our private and public industries is unions, right? It's a really stagnant thing. It doesn't count for meritocracy. They defend the worst people against all lawsuits. They keep them employed and just keep them in like dark rooms where they don't do anything and just keep paying them. They do everything to stop any person from ever getting fired from a union position. And this is why the police have this problem, this culture, because um, there are shootings where the mayor and the governor are calling for like this person to be removed, this cop, and they won't. And the unions will use every penny they have to defend this guy from getting removed from the force. And then this incentivizes every other action from there afterwards.
So, I mean, same thing happens with teachers unions. Like, there's a really big problem,
Yes.
especially in New York, of the teachers union having like a shit ton of teachers who just can't teach. Like, no school will take them, and so they just sit around in these rooms collecting checks while doing nothing all day. Because, you know, I don't know, they had like a scandal where like they diddled a kid or something.
On the
Also,
police thing,
it costs $200,000 to actually at least $200,000 to fire a teacher. So to the city, it's not worth spending $200,000 for every incompetent teacher to get rid of them. And then Democrats are the ones who defend unions most of the time. So this is why it connects together politically.
there's good and bad unions, sure. I mean, I'm protected by a public union, and I would say it causes more problems for me than anything. But on the police thing, what's interesting is like that was one of the points in the spring that I was making, that like the police union seems to be a real problem, and you know that was seen as not enough. You know, like you're not on board with get rid of the police, defund the police, and I was like, yeah, that's a terrible idea. And so what happened over the summer? What happened over the summer is it legitimized the need for police unions. That's what happened. So we had a situation where we could have potentially minimized police unions or dealt with the problem, but now it's like, well, no, I'm not going to fuck with police unions right now when police are like in a situation where they need to be protected. Do you know what I mean?
But
Yeah.
isn't
Yeah.
this the same age-old issue?
They
Like,
feel really sensitive right now, right?
Yeah.
well, any power structure that has no oversight will become corrupt. End of story. Doesn't matter if it's union or not. So unless you have some mechanism of oversight that when things go wrong, you can correct for it, you're gonna have this issue.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it's a union issue. I think it's a power structure issue. And I think unless there's oversight that should be done, then you're gonna always have encounter this problem.
Public unions are kind of different though. Like it's like, okay, I work for New York State. I can look at porn at work and I won't get fired. If I commit a crime, I might. If I commit a crime at work, I might. But if I don't do my job, if I, waste company time, like if I do I can basically do anything I want and I will never get fired. The most I'll get is I'll get a warning, and then I just have to behave for 6 months or whatever, and then I'm fine. I can just start fucking around again. And that's just like, because the state doesn't have to produce, like they don't have to show a profit.
It's not about showing profit, but you should be providing some benefit. Surely. Isn't that the point of it? That's why there's a system in place. It's providing services that individual cannot do for themselves.
In theory, in practice, no. So like, I would argue that, Cuomo is a great example of somebody who makes it seem like that's what he's trying to do, when in reality he's not. He wants things to look good for him personally at as small a cost as possible. And that part of that cost is do as little as possible to get me some good press. Because if you do more, the more you do, the more you risk a mistake or risk something going wrong. So if you can do as little as possible in a way that I can market for myself, that's the best. If you go above and
the system is
are incentivized not to do any work.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's just, no, but it's human nature. It's just constant human nature. It's humans.
Of course it is. This is why we should be better than that. I mean, this is why we create system to combat.
But then humans are clever enough to find a way to not care around that. Like it's just constant.
That's why every single system should be revised continuously.
No, but this is the problem. The cost of it is so high though in the United States, because we have so many police departments, and so it's spread out so much that to hire enough people to constantly audit the police department like 3 times a year would cost the taxpayers like billions of dollars. This is the problem. That everything done at scale would just keep costing, and then you have to find people to audit those auditors, right? Because they could be corrupt, right? So now you need to get auditors to audit those people. Then you need state level auditors. Then you need federal people to watch the state people just in case they're corrupt. This is the problem, and the cost of that is so high.
So what are you suggesting then? If there is such a problem, then how are we ever going to fix anything? I mean, this is the thing. We can't just be like, it's too difficult, so let's just let it be,
No. I'm just asking, what's the answer? Yes, so give us a solution. I'm waiting for an answer.
Joe's calling me.
No, I'm saying that there can be solutions. We can work on it, but I don't think we can sit here and just go like, someone give us a solution, right?
Yeah, that sounds right.
I work in like the center of Chapel Hill. People are driving laps around like the town square here, like honking, celebrating, cheering, holding Biden-Harris signs.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, it's not surprising.
I think they just called it for Biden.
Yeah.
They're like, oh my God, the town is electric right now. I'm worried I'll hit somebody on my way to
Starbucks. I would imagine
people are celebrating on the streets here.
Right now, Biden has 290 confirmed. So yeah, I can't imagine that they're.
You hear the honking?
The only states left are Georgia and North Carolina, and Trump's gonna win Georgia. Or sorry, Biden's going to win Georgia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's been called that he's the president now.
People are so happy.
Yeah.
Finally, they're cured of their Trump derangement syndrome. Finally.
Yeah, Joe can't hear you. But yeah, it sounds like they're calling. The news is starting to call it.
Yeah. The reason I called you on my phone is I didn't want to use my data because it's like not yet at the end of the month for me. But
I hear you.
yeah, oh my God, everyone is happy.
I hear you. All right, I'm gonna hang up.
All right.
See you later.
See ya.
Yeah, it looks like North Carolina's still not called. Georgia's still not called. Alaska, that's a real nail biter. We don't know what's going to happen there with those 3 votes. Kidding. North Carolina's probably going to Trump. Georgia's probably going to Biden. So it's going to be probably, what is it, like 306 to 229. Yeah.
So so does that mean like even if all the other states go for Trump, Biden's still gonna win?
Yeah, but
No?
but Biden's going, like, based on these numbers, Biden won. He has 290 votes. There's no way for Trump to, even if he wins the rest. If somehow Trump won Georgia, he'd only have what? 260, I think.
So he needs 270, right?
Yeah,
So he's never gonna get 270 no matter what.
right. So
So
now the question is are the called states legitimate?
so how long would this take for you guys, like, to actually
Well, this
be
is
like,
this is what we were saying, like, at the beginning.
Yeah, like lawsuits have been filed in quite a few states already, and I suspect more to come.
Me too. We should have. I mean, there's always lawsuits, right? There's always lawsuits. We should expect there to be more this year.
I've seen a lot of incredibly suspect things happen over the past couple of days.
Well, this is what me and Arco were talking about at the beginning. I agree with
I
him
remember.
that it would be better. It would be a great idea for Biden to say, we have 2 months until Inauguration Day. We have 1 month until the Electoral College vote. Well, let's do a recount. Let's just do it. We don't have to, but let's just do it. Actually, I don't think Trump can even get. How many votes needed for a recount? I can't remember. It has to be pretty close.
I mean, because the things that I saw is like less close election, more voter fraud, and I think that there's going to be like some very strong allegations made.
If there wasn't, it's in the best interest of the country to find out for sure, like to look into it.
So basically, it doesn't matter who won. You guys are still gonna have a period of time of just not knowing.
Well,
kind of.
You could say it like, if the election is legitimate, Biden definitely won. But we're looking into, and I think it's fine I think this year we should look into it and make sure everything was above board. It seems like it was. I think if we did that, it would build trust.
We have a major projection.
Oh shit. I don't know if you guys could hear that or not. I think that if we looked into it and found out that everything was above board, it would increase trust in the process, which is a good thing.
I mean, I guess you guys have to build some trust somewhere, because it seems like no one trusts anybody here. Well, like from the outside, this perspective seems like it's just
my opinion. In a month, when in a month or two, we're gonna have to have the talk about lockdown part 2. Like, is that happening? if we're in a position where people feel a little more as though they can trust the process, I think it'll be better for the country. That's going to be disputed no matter what, but it would be better if people felt comfortable accepting the outcome, even if they disagree with it. I feel that way. I don't feel like there's any. I don't think there's any problem. But
I think there's a huge erosion of trust in the public sector. That's it. Like from this perspective from here, it just looks like you guys can't trust your media, you can't trust your government, you don't trust each other. Like, it just looks a bit dystopian from this side.
I agree. I
hope
agree.
it's not. I hope it's just a exaggeration because the media likes anything that makes it look like there's going to be a war when there isn't.
I mean, I don't think there's going to be a war. I think there's
No,
some.
you guys
about
have
a
huge
lot of
amount of gun ownership, Kinda,
Yeah, that's
like,
I am worried though because there's a lot of people who are taking it really personally, saying that this is anti-democratic and stuff. So there are people who are gonna really take it like you're trying to attack the republic by not investigating, these allegations fairly and thoroughly.
Like, oh, like I've already seen AOC and like a bunch of other like big name blue check marks on like Twitter. Like they've got a list of the Trump Accountability Project where they've been compiling a list of like all of like the appointees by Trump or Trump supporters. Anytime they can find their actual name and like what their occupation is, they put them on this list and they're all going to be held accountable, they say.
It's worse. There's
And they're
a
talking about
website of
denazification.
there's a website that's been around that's I forget Trump dot win, I think. It's basically gives the address and name of every donor of even $20 to $50 to the Trump campaign.
Oh yeah, I saw somebody had made a website like that and it has a map and you can see on the map where they are so that you could go.
Yeah, and why would you need that information unless you wanted ill will to be done to them? It's kind of scary.
I don't know.
So
It sounds like incitement to violence a little bit.
yes,
Like,
yes, yes, and it's not just one. It's like so many of these instances over time.
There's going
Brett
to be
Weinstein,
violence.
I recommend you just like look up the story of Brett Weinstein. He was a
huh?
professor at a very liberal have you?
Yes, I know him. I
Okay,
know the
so
story well.
like how crazy is that? Like kids with bats going through the university campus looking for him, and this being allowed by the campus police and by the administration because they don't want to be called racist.
I know. Is it better to be called like, accomplice to murder as opposed to being
Yes.
a racist? I don't know.
Apparently,
Yes.
apparently, this is why I
supposed to
feel
be-
like I'm crazy. Apparently, it is.
I don't.
Apparently, it is.
I really don't think that there's. I think the biggest risk for some kind of a armed conflict is coming out of the fear of armed conflict. I don't think there actually is one. I don't think that people are going to do that. And I think like if we just accept the fact that there's legitimate reasons why people aren't trusting and we are open to within reason looking into it as much as possible, I think everything will be fine. I think everything's going to be just fine, and I think ultimately this election is going to be seen as a great thing for the country.
You're very optimistic.
I'm American.
Yeah, Jimmy, what the hell happened? I thought you were kind of pessimistic yesterday.
No, I've been optimistic about this election. Like,
oh really?
Like since election day, I've been optimistic.
I'm a little more optimistic now because I just fucking looked up the the presidential election map or whatever you want to call it of 2016. Trump fucking barely won Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania then.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he won Georgia by a good amount. But one thing that was interesting is like all those states had like, I'm like throwing out kind of an arbitrary number, but it's probably close to the mark. Something like, must have had like 6-7% more like voter turnout this time around. Might be more, but yeah, like Trump barely won those states 4 years ago, but I wonder like what really changed people's minds. I wonder if it was, just whatever the hell was being pitched on like CNN and Fox or I mean the progressives like that's like pretty crystal clear. They just hate Trump, but like people who aren't progressives, like I wonder why.
I didn't look at the numbers, but I wonder if there are actually that many minds that were changed because I think the difference last time was like 3 million votes between popular votes, and this time it's 4 million, and that 1 million alone can account for pretty much the entire difference in the battleground states.
Something I saw, some people were number crunching on Twitter and whatnot, and like I think they crunched the numbers on like how Republicans were like slamming in the House and Senate, but lost narrowly the presidency. Is that something like 30% of the ballots submitted in swing states didn't have anything on them for like anything else except for the presidency. Like people apparently just only voted for the president.
Really?
Yeah, there was a lot more. Like if you look at, I'll pull up both the maps.
Like
and
why are people like how is it that so many people voted for all these Republicans in like local elections and they were winning in races they shouldn't have, and then Biden becomes president? Like that's weird voting. But I mean, cross voting does happen. There's people who only care about the president, but it's weird.
Wait a minute. What happened with the Senate?
Oh,
It's close
Republicans
right
won it.
now. I think, or the last I saw was close. It's like 48-48. And then on Reuters, anyways, I'm seeing 48-48. We're waiting on North Carolina, Alaska, and I think that's it.
Alaska will be red. I mean,
yeah, it looks like right now red for both of them. But North Carolina is still pretty close.
That's interesting.
And then the House, I'm looking at like 212 to 198 in favor of blue. You need 218 for majority. There's too many friggin' districts or whatever the hell they do for me to figure out like what's going on here. But it looks like a lot of blue is left to count.
It looks like the House didn't change or isn't changing at all.
Republicans won 15 seats, I believe.
Really?
Yeah, from what I've understood, they won 15 seats. Most of the Republican victories were actually in the local elections for a lot of these states. I believe the projected currently is that they've won 100 positions. And then it looks like Republicans will have a safe 51 Senate seats.
You guys should feel.
And what we're really looking at is that I think there's 2 Senate runoffs that'll be going on in January, I think. And those are to be watched, but apparently those are safe runs.
You guys might be happy to know that in Portland, which I think many would consider the mecca of lunacy, the Antifa communists kind of more radical mayor candidate Sarah Inaroni lost to the incumbent Democrat, which I mean that's kind of a big sign because she was basically purporting all of the things that the protests were fighting for.
That's good.
So sanity prevailed. It's nice to know.
That's why
it did. Yeah,
I honestly think these election results, the closer I look at them, the happier I am. Even though I mean I wanted Trump, whatever.
Yeah.
He didn't win. I'm happy with these results. The Republicans are not in a bad position at all. The Democrats are in a spot. The Democrats are in a spot where it's like you are done with this whole like you can't do this anymore.
Their electoral strategy is broken.
Yeah,
like their
which
coalition
means
is fragile.
Which means necessary
And
change
have,
is
and
like
the Republicans have the Supreme Court as well. So they have 3 shields. They broke the Senate majority.
And the courts. He's too dangerous to be left alive.
Yeah.
Who's too dangerous to be left alive?
Oh, Trump.
Oh,
I have the meme. I'll post it in memes.
But yeah, like in 2016, the presidential results, I mean, Trump won by 8%, or sorry, 0.8% over Clinton and 0.2% over, or sorry, that was Wisconsin. In Michigan, it was 0.2% that Trump won by in Michigan. And then in Pennsylvania, he won by 0.7%. Which honestly, those are pretty significant back then, because like 1% of the vote went to Jill Stein, and like 2.5, 3.5% of the vote went to Johnson. Whereas like now, if you got like 49.6%, then you pretty much won, because you would need like 50.1%, but 1% of the vote is going to Joe Jorgensen. So you got to take like 0.5 away. So, but yeah, it's still pretty freaking close though in all those states. And yeah, I don't know. The more I look at it, I don't know. Maybe it'll be, I don't know.
I'm
It's
happy.
whatever.
I'm happy. The
And
polls
then,
were wrong. I mean, I'm happy about that.
are the polls ever right? Like honestly,
How are the polls right?
no, are they ever right?
Oh, well, they used to be relatively.
Betting, everybody voted for Biden. Well, in the bets, so I always look at people who is gonna put money where their mouth is. You know, as I always say, if someone asks me, do you think you're virtuous, a nice person, and you vote for whoever they're telling me the virtuous, a nice candidate is, of course I'm going to say yes. That's if I'm going to tell the truth. I think he's a piece of shit. Of course not. I'm just gonna lie. So I feel like that's why it's better to look at people who's actually going to put money where they think is going to happen, right? Because they're going to stand to lose. You've got skin in the game.
It's true. I'm curious how much this map changes next time because of the census.
Yeah. So I mean, what do you guys think of President Harris though?
Not a fan.
Not much.
Not a fan.
Yeah, I'm not excited for her at all.
I don't like anybody
Oh
who's.
boy, I can't wait until.
Yeah, no.
Hopefully she like does something stupid, and then people are just like, okay, like we gotta in 2022 we gotta have like House and Senate both like Republican. I'd be like, all right, cool.
I mean, if Biden does die and she becomes like actual president, I still think she's kind of is the president personally, but if she becomes like actual president, she might be the most disliked president universally in a long time. Like
aside from Trump.
I don't know though.
I don't think she'll beat Trump, dude. You seen this
I
propaganda?
think she'll have the media just jerking her off like they did to Obama for 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't think there's going to be like.
I just don't know anybody who likes her.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's mostly identity politic points. She wins.
True, yeah.
Because it's a minority of people who actually like that bullshit. Most people think it's what it is. It's bullshit. So
Yeah, I'm hoping within 4 years we can be like, that's not an argument. Like, you're black
That'd be
and
real progress.
Like, that's not an argument.
You
also,
know what?
like,
I feel like I should say I identify as gold, and gold is like very expensive and shit, and it's like the best color. So all my arguments just win automatically. That's it.
I really want to. I'm surprised this hasn't been asked yet, but I can't wait for somebody to ask her, how does it feel to be the first diversity hire in the White House? Because that's what you are. It was explicitly stated.
That'd be such a based question.
Like it was explicitly stated that he was going to pick someone based, like he was going to pick someone black and
who's a woman, yeah.
Woman, like, or minority. Was it just because he thought it would play well? Probably.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
No.
It goes well for the progressives. They love that shit.
Have you guys ever watched the Politician on Netflix? It's great.
No.
It's a great parody of what's happening with you guys.
What's it called?
The Politician.
I'll have to check it out.
It's a really great parody. Like,
You're giving
I
me.
look at them.
You're giving me too many things to check out. What was the other one?
It's another one. Now I've lost it again.
With Kit Harington. Started with a C.
Criminal season 2.
Criminal season 2. Yeah. All right. I gotta end this stream, but if you guys want to keep chatting, whatever. I gotta get going. Stayed for an extra half
Nice
hour.
day.
Adios.
Boy,
Ciao.
boy.
Bye.
Tell us how you really feel, Chris.